Hey, welcome back to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul, the podcast where we dig into the giants who built this genre so we and our peers can build the new vibe for today. And I'm Max Soul.
And I'm Mello Soul. Today we're talking about the sound of urgency.
Ooh.
The sound of raw, unrefined vocal power.
Ooh, again.
The architect who taught soul music how to scream and how to dominate the studio.
Yeah.
The wicked Pickett, Wilson Pickett.
Damn. Yes, indeed, Mello. Wilson Pickett is just more than a hit maker. His career is a masterclass in artist command. He is truly proof that pure, volatile talent, when strategically aligned, can conquer any genre and any decade.
Absolutely, Max. For modern R&B and soul artists navigating a complex music industry, Pickett's path offers crucial lessons in authenticity, ownership, and adaptability. How do you maintain your raw truth when the industry wants to polish you?
Yeah, like a diamond.
And that's what we're learning today.
So let's dive into the core of his sound, the sessions that broke the mold, and the business choices that kept him on top.
So stay with us, and we'll be right back after this break.
That's right. You're listening to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the show. And before we continue, if you like this content, please give a like, subscribe to our channel.
Please.
Yes, we would love to hear from you, so leave us a comment. It helps us keep the soul fire burning.
Definitely, Mello. Now, let's talk about that sound. Wilson Pickett's genius started in the gospel tradition of Prattville, Alabama. And he moved to Detroit as a teenager and began a singing career in a gospel quartet called the Violinaires. And it is here where he developed his signature impassioned, testifying style. I got to testify.
That's right, Max. He transitioned to secular music and joined the R&B vocal group The Falcons, which included future soul stars Eddie Floyd and Sir Mac Rice.
Right, Eddie Floyd and Sir Mac Rice. Two more strings to pull on, Mello. I guess we'll be getting to them, too. Anyway, Wilson, he sang lead on their 62 hit, I Found a Love. And that early exposure gave him his signature weapon, the Gospel Moan.
And that sound is everything, Max.
Oh, shit, yeah.
It's more than a vocal run. It's a physical manifestation of emotion. When you hear Wilson Pickett transition from singing to that guttural, half-yell, half-preached sound, it's the very definition of hard soul.
And the lesson for new artists here is profound, Mel. Uncompromising authenticity in today's digital landscape, where everyone is trying to sound like the trend. Wilson Pickett reminds you that your most valued asset is the sound no one else can replicate. His raw, urgent delivery anchored the Southern soul sound against the urbanity of Motown. Ooh.
That's right, Max. After a few solo singles, he signed with Atlantic Records in 1964.
Right, Mello. Wilson Pickett then fell under the auspices of our man, Jerry Wexler.
There's a familiar name.
Oh, my God. So familiar. Who's shown up in a number of these podcasts that we have done. And he is the linchpin of so many of the artists and Atlantic Records. Unbelievable. We did a two-parter on Atlantic Records where you'll actually get the best information on who Jerry Wexler was. And then if you're really interested, you can go back and watch some of the other ones like Aretha and the Stax one and Booker T and Chess Records and Etta James or maybe King Curtis and the Muscle Shoals. Well, he's in all of them, which pretty much tells you how influential he was.
He was the man.
Oh, he was. But back to Wilson Pickett and his initial New York sessions.
Yes, Max, there was Wilson at Atlantic's New York studio. However, initial New York sessions were disappointing to Jerry Wexler.
I'll never understand that.
Well, if we fail to mention, Jerry was the Atlantic Records lead executive producer under Albert Erdogan.
Yeah, he was the big number two guy.
And Wexler knew Pickett's explosive style needed a different environment.
It's kind of crazy, though, Mello. I mean, the musicians for these 1964 and early 1965 sessions were heavy hitters up here. Guys that we know, names that we love. Bernard Pretty Purdy, who was a badass drummer. I mean, so sought after still. I mean, in fact, he says he's played on the Beatles records, and I tend to believe him, right? Then you got Chuck Rainey on bass, right? Who was an amazing guy. I actually got to meet him when I was a student in California back in the day. Jimmy Lewis, another bass player. The guitar player was Cornell Dupree, another guy who I absolutely love. Billy Butler was another one. Wally Richardson. I mean, and of course, you can't forget that on piano, he was using Richard T. And me and Mello loved this motherfucker, right? Him, and then there was Paul Griffin. And of course, you know, how complete would it not be if King Curtis wasn't on saxophone
Right.
and doing the horn arrangements? I mean, honestly, since this was pre-Stax, though, it wasn't the Memphis horns because they hadn't coalesced just yet to become the standard, which they became.
Correct, Max. So at that time, they were using cats like trumpeters Melvin Lastly or Joe Newman, another frequent trumpet player in the Atlantic House Band.
Oh, yeah. As we said, Wexler took full advantage of these New York players. And these guys were so badass, right? The full horn section often utilized other top players like Selden Powell on sax and Haywood Henry on bari, depending on their availability, obviously, because these guys were all booked for everything and the specific arrangement needs, which King Curtis, of course, took care of that.
Yeah, right, Max. Killers. These musicians, led by King Curtis, provided the brassy, urban, and slightly jazz-inflected sound.
They were badass.
Oh, yeah, it was typical of New York R&B before the shift to the raw southern soul of Memphis and Muscle Shoals, every one of them. And these sessions did produce the first major solo hit, In the Midnight Hour.
Well, yeah, they did record it.
Yeah, unfortunately, in its original, less successful New York arrangement, and the single Come Home Baby.
And this is something I don't really understand because those guys, well, I do understand it when we get into it, and you'll all follow us on that too, Soul Fam. But what those guys are such great musicians. We've seen them play in so many situations. They've played on so many records. You'd think, wow, this is how badass is it going to be? And it turned out not to have that little something. And that little something is what it's all about. So the definitive breakout Southern Soul version of In the Midnight Hour was recorded later in '65 when Jerry took them down to Stax in Memphis, Tennessee, where there was Booker T and the MGs. And this shift in location and personnel defined the Wicked Pickett sound. So the connection between Atlantic and Stax had begun with a simple distribution agreement.
Yes, Max. In the early 1960s, Stax, then still sometimes known as Satellite Records,
Right.
had a regional hit by a duet. It was a duet by Rufus and Carla Thomas.
Ooh, Rufus and Carla Thomas.
It was called 'Cause I Love You. And the success is what drew the attention of Atlantic Records.
Exactly. And that planted the seed in Jerry Wexler's head, Mello. And as we said before, he was the senior executive on Undrum Ertgun, and he was also the co-owner and an A&R executive. So he was damn impressed by the quality of the record and the potential of the Memphis scene.
So Jerry Wexler flew down to Memphis and struck a deal with Stax co-founder Jim Stewart. And this initial contract gave Atlantic Records the distribution rights for all Stax and Volt label releases.
That's how they did it.
Yeah, Jerry was nothing if not a brilliant businessman and visionary.
And that distribution deal allowed Jerry to observe the unique Stax atmosphere, which eventually led him to sending his own artists there, as we know, because he sent Wilson down there. And he sent Atlantic's legendary engineer and one of my heroes, Tom Dowd, who recognized that the sound coming out of Stax's former movie theater studio was distinct. In fact, he said you might say it was a great new vibe. I thought that was fucking
New
cool.
vibe, okay.
Right?
Like
In
some of
fact,
that.
but Jerry said it was the vibe, which is a very big statement.
It totally was, Max. And it had an organic, integrated, and raw feel. It was unlike the highly structured professional pop R&B being recorded back in New York.
Yeah, I think that little laid-back thing is what was really important because Jerry recognized the immense talent of the Stax house band, Booker T and the MGs, which featured black and white musicians playing together, of course, which Jerry, of course, the man who changed race records to R&B, was all about making a hit record and didn't matter who was there. And we talked about that before, too, in the other podcasts. But this lineup, which was Booker T. Jones on organ and Steve Cropper on guitar, Duck Dunn on bass, and Al Jackson Jr., they created a gritty blues gospel groove that Jerry felt sure was the future of soul music. And Atlantic artists like Wilson Pickett were struggling to capture a definitive sound recording in New York. So Jerry believed that the cure for Pickett's lagging sales was to immerse him in this authentic Southern environment. Brilliant idea. Thus, the logic for this need for a change and its cure for what they weren't finding up in New York with the cats there. How fucking brilliant is that?
It is brilliant. And Wexler's decision was therefore a combination of commercial necessity and artistic vision. See, Max, he saw that the sound of the future was Southern soul.
Very bright.
And that Stax was the place where that authentic raw sound was being bottled.
At that point, it sure as hell was.
It sure was. His first trip to send Atlantic artists there was in 1965 with Wilson Pickett.
Which we loved.
Yeah, it resulted in the breakout version of In the Midnight Hour.
Exactly, Mel, exactly. And the moment Jerry sent him down there, well, that was a legendary moment in soul music history. The birth of a hit and the Southern shift. When Wexler brought Wilson to Stax, well, Pickett was now playing and recording with this great band that played differently. And they were drawn together.
You bet, Max. This 1965 session produced their first massive hit, In the Midnight Hour, co-written by Pickett and guitarist Steve Cropper. The song's signature groove, known for its delayed beat or staggered beat.
Badass.
Yeah, that became the template for the Stax sound and Southern soul.
This is one of the most famous and crucial anecdotes in the history of soul music, Mello. The introduction of the staggered beat on In the Midnight Hour was a moment of pure, on-the-spot genius, sparked by an observation from Jerry Wexler and executed by Steve Cropper. And this is the thing we talk about with session players, right? Mm-hmm. They come up with this stuff, and some of these great tunes, no one had this stuff written out. They just talked about what they wanted to do, and then they came up with it.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment or Eureka moment, as Jerry called it.
No, you bet.
Now the song was written quickly in the Lorraine Motel, where, by the way, Martin Luther King was later assassinated, by Wilson Pickett and guitarist Steve Cropper. They had the lyrics and the basic chord structure, but the initial rhythm, as played by the Stax House Band, was a straightforward standard backbeat.
Right, basically.
Yeah, and right away they knew what the problem was, Max. It felt a little bit too straight. It didn't have the unique hook or rhythmic twist that would elevate it from a good R&B track to a classic.
Exactly, Mello. You know, that there's that little thing, right, that has to be right. And our man, Jerry Wexler, who's the man about the thing, right, he was co-producing the session in the control room, and he's like, this straight rhythm ain't landing. So he stops them down, and he steps in the studio, and he addresses the band. And he says, these dance crazes, I know that there's these dance crazes that are often dictating music rhythms. And he was aware of a popular dance. Now, we're not sure whether it was the jerk or whether it was the funky chicken. The accounts vary, but it was a popular 60s dance that he referenced. This led to Jerry's Eureka moment.
Exactly, Max. Wexler told the band, you're playing it straight. We need to put a little stutter in it. Like this, and then he demonstrated the motion of a dance. Could you picture that?
I can't. Jerry Wexler, like right. The king.
Showing how the dancers paused or jerked their bodies on a certain beats. He instructed the rhythm section to emphasize the delayed backbeat, to hold the bass and snare hit on beat 2 and 4,
right,
creating a slight drag before the beat landed.
Well, don't you know that Steve Cropper, the MG's guitarist, immediately grasped that rhythmic concept of the stagger. And instead of keeping the guitar chords punching straight on the beat, Cropper intentionally delayed the landing of his chord hits. He created a staggered rhythm, or what they call a lazy backbeat, where the guitar, the bass, played by Dunn, and played by Al Jackson Jr. on drums, momentarily paused before hitting the downbeat of the bar. And this intentional rhythmic tension and release is known as playing behind the beat, or using a syncopated rhythm.
Yes, Max. It made the groove feel simultaneously lazy and incredibly urgent, and it created the unforgettable loping, insistent, and slightly drunken quality of the song.
The result being that a new sound is born, Mello. That rhythmic shift catalyzed by Wexler's observation and perfectly executed by Cropper and the MGs became the signature groove of In the Midnight Hour and the definitive blueprint for Southern soul. Modern artists need to remember that the genius is often found in the spontaneous reaction between you and your collaborators in the moment.
And when Atlantic Records sent Wilson Pickett to Stax Records in Memphis, it was the perfect alignment of artist and environment.
Kismet, baby, kismet.
Yep. Wilson Pickett meets Booker T and the MGs, and everything clicks.
Badass.
The band was stripped down and raw and ready to meet his intensity.
They were.
This collaboration produced other classics like Don't Fight It and 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. I love that song.
Favorite. That's my favorite Wilson tune. I love that song.
It's a lesson we constantly apply. Find the musicians who understand your truth, not just your notes. That foundational authenticity is what allowed him to take that sound anywhere.
That's right. So here is where things fundamentally changed for Wilson Pickett. From Stax, he pivots. Now, the story that they put out was that the partnership between Pickett and Stax was short-lived because Stax was eventually going to prohibit outside non-Stax produced sessions, which affected Atlantic. But our research finds it a little differently. I mean, we know that Wilson was a dog, right? And he liked Carla. And Rufus was
her dad. He was not having it.
He was her dad. He was not having it. No. And Rufus made a big stink. And so the phone rang up at Atlantic, and Jerry Wexler got an earful. Then Wilson became no more at Stax. And, well, guess what? He had just happened to talk to Rick Hall at Fame Studios. And Rick was telling about his incredibly badass band of these kids that he had. And, well, guess what? He's on his way down to Muscle Shoals, where he's recording anthems like Mustang Sally and The Land of 1,000 Dances. The same raw intention, slightly funkier groove, all built around that wicked voice.
We'll talk about Mustang Sally in the session that literally bridged two worlds.
Oh, damn well, dude.
But first, let's take another quick break. You're kicking it with Max and Mello's Architects of Soul.
And we are chopping it up with Wilson Pickett. Don't go nowhere. Hey, welcome back to Architects of Soul. So, let's talk about the joke first now. Mustang Sally was written by Wilson Pickett's former Falcons bandmate, Sir Mac Rice, who we mentioned earlier. The song was originally written as a kind of a joke for Della Reese's drummer, who's Calvin Shields, who wanted a new Ford Mustang instead of the much larger Lincoln Continental that Della Reese was thinking of buying him.
Yes, Max. Rice originally called the song Mustang Mama.
I love that.
Mustang Mama, but he changed the name to Mustang Sally after Aretha Franklin.
That's called I'll go Aretha.
After Aretha suggested it based on the children's rhyme Little Sally Walker.
Little Sally Walker, sitting in the salsa. Amen, baby. Perfect example, Mello, of humility in the creative process. While Wilson Pickett popularized the song, the story emphasizes how creativity is a communal process that relies on peers, and in this case, Aretha Franklin, and unexpected moments.
Right, Max. Like a car joke, for instance.
Yes, exactly. For that, creation's indeed unexpected moments. The strings, Mello, the strings. You see them everywhere. This highlights Wilson Pickett's business savvy in knowing a hit when he heard one, covering his old bandmate's tune, and now we all know that nothing ever totally works out the way you want it to.
Yeah, and issues will appear, Max, as they often do. So why should it be any different with Wilson Pickett? So they did end up with having a monumental issue.
Oh, my God. Yes, they did, Mello. So after the session for this iconic recording of Mustang Sally, right, that was finished, these guys were so eager to rush into the control room to hear the playback that in their haste, or, well, maybe due to someone's temper, we don't know, but someone either jostled the machine or the machine itself malfunctioned, but it shredded the master tape into pieces. And some reports say they were up to 30 to 40 tiny fragments. Holy shit.
This is the portion of our show where we remind you, protect your masters and your engineers.
Hello.
And this is the perfect point also to talk about protecting your intellectual property and the people who save it.
Yes, don't forget the people who save it. One of my heroes, the legendary engineer Tom Dowd, spent time painstakingly splicing those tiny pieces of tape back together to salvage the finished track. I know what that guy did, which is the version that we all know and love today. And if Tom Dowd had not been that hero, that track surely would have been lost.
Amazing, Max. An incredible tale solved by an incredible engineer.
He was.
So back to Wilson Pickett's journey. He continued conquering the Southern soul landscape, and by 1968, he was restless.
Yes, he was.
His next strategic move was a huge gamble, covering the Beatles' massive pop anthem, Hey Jude.
And the story, as we covered it in the Fame podcast, which you should go back and check out, was really good, was that Duane Allman and Wilson Pickett always hung back at lunch because they didn't want to be accompanied by the short-haired, collared shirt-wearing musicians of Alabama that didn't look like musicians, but more like 60s college kids, whereas Duane and Wilson, well, they couldn't go anywhere unescorted in Jim Crow, Alabama.
True that,
They
Max.
get the shit kicked out of them.
Exactly. This session, like most of them at Fame, is legendary for the tension and innovation. Studio owner Rick Hall was very resistant and convinced a Southern soul singer couldn't touch a 9-minute pop song.
And he was a hell of a hard ass, so I'm sure convincing him was not easy.
But Pickett insisted. And as we all know, Duane Allman, your guitar hero, yep, he was a young, virtually unknown session guitarist, and he was the guy who came up with the idea of doing the song in the first place. And he convinced Wilson, and then they went to work on Rick Hall.
You bet, Mello. The song starts as a soulful cover, but it's the massive jam band coda where the magic happens. Duane Allman takes over with this raw, incredible swirling guitar solo that just tears through the track. Horn stabs kicking the solo and rhythm section in the pocket, and Wilson Pickett tearing it up. And, well, we all know what happened. Southern rock was born.
Yes, Max. It's over 4 minutes of pure electric dialogue between Pickett's primal shouts and Allman's soaring guitar. Pickett, the veteran, recognized the greatness and empowered the young musician, and that single performance launched Allman's career and landed him a record deal.
Yeah, the lesson here for artists today is elevation and recognition. Wilson Pickett didn't try to outplay Duane Allman. He used his own established brilliance to create a spotlight for the next generation. And we as today's artists must remember that lifting up our peers, finding the right collaborators, even the ones who might steal the show, is what truly pushes the genre forward.
That confidence is key. Pickett knew that even if Allman's guitar break was phenomenal, his voice was the anchor.
Exactly.
He was so impressed, he reportedly nicknamed him Sky Man, which became Sky Dog.
Yes, it sure did.
And that one session broke down the wall between rock and soul forever.
And it did forever, right? It showed that soul music could command any piece of material, whether written by Lennon McCartney or penned in a Stax session. It's a testament to the fact that when your foundation is strong, you can build anything. So before we go to a break, let's talk for a second about the nickname The Wicked Pickett, which was coined by our boy Jerry Wexler.
Remember, Soul Fam, Jerry Wexler was a master of marketing and instantly recognized that Pickett's fiery stage presence and volatile personality were the perfect counterbalance to his wicked voice.
Oh, and he definitely loved that.
He weaponized the term to market the singer as dangerous, sexy, and utterly uncompromising.
Yeah, Wicked Pickett, right? The lesson here, own your personal branding. This reinforces the idea that Wilson wasn't just talented. He was actually a brand. Jerry took the raw edge of Wilson's personality and turned it into a profitable moniker. So for modern artists, that's a lesson that your public persona should be just as potent and memorable as your sound.
Absolutely. And that foundation was about to be tested by a whole new architectural movement. Let's take a final break before we discuss Pickett's strategic pivot to the north.
You bet. You're listening to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Thanks for tuning into Architects of Soul. Our music is waiting for you. Hey, welcome back. So if you like this content, please give a like and subscribe to our channel. It really means the world to us as we continue to champion these legends.
Now, after conquering Southern Soul, Pickett faces the 70s.
Dun, dun, dun.
The game is changing. The sound is moving from gritty immediacy of the South to the sophisticated, orchestrated grooves of the North.
Smell something. Smell like Philadelphia
Soul. Philadelphia.
Philly soul, baby.
Yep.
It's like a cheesesteak. Well, anyway, so this is where we see the lesson of strategic adaptability. The decision to send Wilson Pickett north to Philadelphia to work with Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, well, that was primarily made by guess who?
Jerry Wexler, of course.
All right, so by the late 60s, the raw, gritty Southern sound that Pickett, Stax, and Muscle Shoals had pioneered was beginning to be superseded commercially by that lusher, more sophisticated Philly soul sound. And Jerry Wexler, ever the astute music executive, recognized that to keep Wilson Pickett relevant and scoring crossover hits in the 70s, his sound needed an update. And well, Wex, he was the man to chase that new sound.
Pickett's collaborations with the Southern rhythm sections, Booker T and the MGs, and the Swampers had peaked.
Apparently.
Wexler wanted to pair Pickett's aggressive, gospel-fueled voice with the polished orchestral arrangements that Gamble and Huff were developing at Sigma Sound Studios in Philly.
Another podcast we did.
Yep. A sound that would soon define the 70s. This was a truly strategic production shift.
That's right. Wilson Pickett was one of Atlantic's most reliable hitmakers, and Jerry Wexler was determined to guide him through the transitional period in soul music, ensuring his commercial success continued into a new decade. Really nice of him, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, the resulting 1970 album, though, was Wilson Pickett in Philadelphia, which was a successful experiment in marrying Southern grit with Northern polish, validating Jerry Wexler's strategic decision. He's a brilliant man.
Yeah, that collision was fascinating. The man who defined hard soul is suddenly laid over the smooth, lush strings and hi-hats recorded at Sigma Sound Studios by the band that would later become MFSB.
Ain't that some shit?
Yeah, it's the Grizzly Bear and the Tuxedo album. Wilson Pickett in Philadelphia.
That's right. Tension is palpable. Pickett's roar is fighting against the sleek arrangements, but it fucking works. Mm-hmm. It gave him a massive 70s crossover. Hits like Engine Number 9 and the beautiful orchestrated ballad, Don't Let the Green Grass Fool You.
This move teaches every modern R&B artist a crucial lesson.
Hell yes.
Survival requires evolution.
100%.
Pickett proves you don't have to discard your core identity, but you must find a way to let it command the contemporary soundscape.
I like it.
His willingness to work with a totally new sound team showed an astute awareness of the changing market.
Exactly. He did not let himself become a relic of the 60s. He knew where the hits were coming from, and even later, as the disco era hit, well, he pivoted again, giving us records like A Funky Situation, where he continued to merge his raw sensibility with the four-on-the-floor beat, delivering that perfect, unforgettable Pickett line, "Lay me like you hate me."
He was a survivor. His career is proof that the strongest artists are the ones who can command the past while actively leaning into the future. That's the architectural lesson.
Okay, Soul Fam, we're going to take our last break, and then we're going to come back and put a bow on it. But first, before we take that break, if you're digging these stories about these lessons we've learned,
definitely, Max, if you're picking up what we're putting down,
we would greatly appreciate it. A like and subscribe. Hopefully, a comment, too, to tell us what you'd really like us to do a deep dive on.
That would be most appreciated. But in the meantime, we're going to take a pause for the cause.
That's right. You're listening to Max and Mel's Architects of Soul. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back. So Mello, Wilson Pickett's journey from the church choir to Stax, fame in Philly. Well, doesn't it provide a critical blueprint for every artist today?
Oh, no doubt, Max. His legacy is not just the hits. It's the lessons for the upcoming generation of soul and R&B artists. He showed us that authenticity is non-negotiable.
Holla.
Your original voice is your most valuable asset.
It truly is.
Ownership is foundational.
100%.
Demand to work in the environment and with the collaborators who respect and elevate your sound.
Aretha Franklin.
Hello.
Sally Walker in the salsa.
Adaptation is survival. Command the trends and don't be commanded by them.
That's right. He was a demanding, complex genius and a truly wild child. But the results speak for themselves. Every gritty vocalist, every songwriter demanding creative control is following the path that the wicked Pickett forged. It's about being uncompromising in your art while being strategic in your business.
And that lesson about seeking out and elevating that next generation, like his interaction with Duane Allman, is one we in Soul and the New Vibe, as well as our peers, must embrace.
Yes, 100%.
That's right. We stand on their shoulders and we must extend a hand to those coming up behind us.
Absolutely, Mello. Our calling is to learn from these architects and pass this knowledge down for the next generation, and we fucking love that. So thank you for joining us on this exploration of a true giant. And as always, we want to close with our final thought and our hope for all of us, our art, our craft, and our creations.
Keep that soul fire burning, protect your sound, nurture your creativity, own your voice, and remember the lessons from the giants who came before.
And yes, protect your masters and seek out wise mentors who can guide you on your journey. And until next we meet, peace and soul, y'all.